Hey everybody, welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your weekly dose of gaming news from a critical perspective. Presented by the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, music videos, and tons more. So I don't know if you heard about this. By the way, my name is Asheninity. I'm here as always with Cybsidian.
I was waiting for you to introduce me, but here I am.
So I don't know if you heard about this, but Adobe is releasing a new video processing tool. And
I did not hear about this.
No, it takes your video and then it makes things randomly flicker on and off inside the video.
Oh, cool.
And then it makes the shadows all blocky and jittery.
Nice.
And then any people in your videos, it makes everybody look like plastic dolls that were animated by Robot Chicken. And they're calling it After Effects Andromeda.
Oh, cool. After Effects. All right, that works. That works.
Yeah. Also in the news this week, Lord of the Rings Online is celebrating its 10th anniversary by reminding everybody about the existence of Lord of the Rings Online.
Oh, that's so mean.
And finally,
I know we have at least like 3 people who play that game in our sub count. I do apologize to currently the half of the entire server population of that game who is currently subscribed to us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The game is good. I enjoyed it. Like playing through it like for a short period of time, I was like, this is really cool. But there was no character classes that I meshed with well. So I just couldn't click with any of the characters. I liked the premise, I liked the game, I liked the races, but I couldn't get into the mechanics for a class.
Well, if you could be any race and class in the Tolkien universe, what would you be?
Well, that's the thing is like there's not.
Orc, that's what I thought. Okay.
No, not an orc. I've played a lot of MMOs over the years, like WoW and Rift and all those kinds of, like some of the top chart ones. I've played almost every one, even the Warhammer one, which was terrible. But there's something to be said for like class diversity and giving you a lot of choice, because Rift was quite possibly one of my favorites because you basically make your own class within like several archetypes. But you could roll like the classic like rogue and become a tank or a healer or anything, and it was still balanced pretty good. The balance was pretty decent in the game. I never remember anything being like, ridiculously broken for long periods of time. But it's definitely something that you have to have mechanics that you click with. Otherwise, you kind of get bored of the game. So
it does kind of. I see what you're saying. I mean, it does kind of. Sometimes class systems feel very limiting. You have to pick one or the other.
If you give them enough choice, though, like I think that's a good thing, and I think that's really what helped WoW like early on was the fact that when it came out, it was like here is each class, and each class has 3 different kind of main specs, and some of the classes were capable of doing more than one thing really well. And then as the expansions progressed up through Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, it got even better, and things got really well balanced and really well fleshed out. And now they're bleeding subscribers like constantly. It's really sad.
I should really get on there and refresh my WoW profile and get my character back up and running.
What, the level 1 or the level 2?
My level 10 character.
Okay.
I haven't played him in. It's been, I don't know, it's been only about 10 years. Do you think
10, 15 years? I think.
You think my account is still active? I mean, it was.
Yeah. Well, that is the nice thing about WoW is they always hold your account active.
Well, it's. I mean, it was a top-notch character with an amazing backstory. I mean, I was an undead skeleton guy named Snookums.
Okay.
I was totally just trolling with everybody, but anyway.
Okay, I see where you're going with that now. Totally makes sense. So yeah, we should probably have a moment of silence for giant bunny rabbit. Was one of the biggest rabbits in the world, who mysteriously died on a United Airlines flight. And then we should probably have a moment of silence for United Airlines, because this is now, I can't imagine it getting worse than this.
Now, there's nothing to suggest that United is at fault for this rabbit dying. But sadly, there were no doctors around to help.
They're having a really bad month.
They pissed off the wrong voodoo priestess or something, because they're just not having a good time.
It seems to me, with airlines and flights and stuff like that bad things usually happen like all together, like clumped up. things tend to like move or be bad in like seasons, and for a season for like one particular company, it seems to me that way. Like the whole Malaysian air flight stuff, like Malaysia lost like 2 planes in the span of like what, a month, and it, I mean, that's the way it kind of works. It seems to me, at least, that patterns are kind of weird in this stuff.
Well, that's kind of how life is, though. Have you ever had it where there's something that you haven't thought about in years, and then suddenly 2 people will mention it to you in the same day? Like some TV show you've never thought of, or some person, some friend you used to know.
Happens to me all the time, and even more creepy, it's like really, really, really specific stuff. Like I'll be out working or run into the store or something like that, and I'll think about like an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine or something like that, and I'm like, oh wow, that was such a crazy episode, really good episode. And then I'll come home, and like the next day, I gotta do some prep down here, so I'll just turn on the telly and watch something.
Turn on the telly? You're British now?
Yeah, turn on the telly, turn it to space or
turn on the telly, fast forward the adverts, and
and
have some bangers and mash.
Oh, for crying out loud. And turn on the TV, and it's that episode from Star Trek.
That has happened to me so many times in my life, though, where I've seen like one episode of a show, and I sit down to watch another episode of that show for the second time in my life, or it just happens to be on at somebody's house, and it's the same episode that I saw.
I had that happen a couple of times when I watched like the old versions, the black and white Doctor Who's.
Yeah.
When I would like go and like stay with my grandparents during the spring break or something like that.
Well, it doesn't help that the BBC lost a whole ton of episodes, and there's probably only a handful of them left. But
yeah, true.
Actually, do you ever wonder if we're living in a computer simulation?
I have heard this before so many times.
There's times when it's like you're talking to somebody, and it's like your voice sounds so familiar, but I know you have not. I have not met you before, but you're like voiced by the same actor or something. In my more crazier moments, I will sometimes think, that there's only like 100 people tops, right? And this is a big simulation, and there's like 50 people who keep on like putting on they're not even trying. They're putting on like the same kind of basic hairstyle, and they're trying to say the same things, but that they're different. That's how crazy I can be from time to time. It's great. I'm sure some psychologist is going to hear this and be like, "Oh my goodness, this guy needs to be, let's put electrodes on his head and immediately." Yeah. But with that TV example I gave you earlier, like I just wonder if whoever's running the simulation is like, oh, holy crap, we need another episode of that show that this guy saw. Oh, but we only made one. Well, throw it on again. Like, just, he'll just think it's a coincidence. Blah, 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 blah. Well, the truth is out there. Speaking of bizarre, and you haven't played Elite Dangerous, have you? No. Okay, so Elite Dangerous, I messed around with it a little bit. I didn't have time to get into it. Still don't have time to get into it a lot. But I do like some of the stuff that they do. I really do like some of the stuff that they do. And they just had this thing where these players like stumbled across this gigantic mega ship floating out in space. It's kind of like an open space universe, and you can fly around all different places. I really do like what they've done here in that they've added big mysteries that the community like has to band together and try and solve or work out together. I think that's brilliant, and I really, really hope that we see more of this in MMOs in the future. Like, coming across something cool is cool, but when you realize that something's always been there and will stay there and will remain unchanged for the duration of the game's existence, that kind of sucks. Sometimes it's like, give me something cool. Well, speaking of unsolved mysteries and stuff like that, there was a mysterious treasure chest in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild that is impossible to access in the game, but somebody using an emulator managed to access this treasure chest because the emulator, was a little glitchy, doesn't do things properly. And so the guy was able to clip through this water and open up this mysterious treasure chest. It was an opal. Just a common opal that you can get by smashing any rock in the mountains. It was so obviously not biggest letdown ever. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, you remember the days before the internet was a big thing, and before there was a YouTube guide for everything and a 4chan to comb through every little detail of everything. And the legends would pop up like Luigi is hidden in Mario 64 because if you look at this one plaque somewhere, it has the letter L on it and it's blah blah blah. And then your friend, of course, would tell you that he knows a guy who found Luigi at the top of the lava waterfall, right? And so you'd waste hours trying to get there without dying. Yep. Yeah. Bottom line is, I'm saying I'm glad we have the internet now. That's what I'm saying. So we don't have to waste time on that garbage.
But at the same time, I really do enjoy like the random crazy challenges that you can get, and I think that it's really a sad thing in open world games where it's all been seen by somebody else. But at the same time, it is fun to constantly explore. But how much more fun would it be if you came across never before seen things? And that's what I really, really enjoyed about the old like Neverwinter Nights games, where you play with like GMs who would like craft things on the go and give you like my first experience with really good multiplayer was running around and this GM appeared as a ghost and he's like, these orcs killed me and now I'm a ghost, but I want revenge before I can sleep, and then you're like, oh, I could go kill some orcs. Yeah, I could go fuck those orcs. So you go fight your way up to this orc chieftain, and the orc chieftain's like, why are you doing this? Why are you fighting me? And you're like, well, you killed the guy. And he's like, yeah, he was an assassin. He was poisoning our food supply. And you're like, oh, so the guy was an asshole. And then they killed him as revenge. And so, and this is all being written on the fly by a GM.
Oh, that's neat.
And he's in some cases, he's actually taking over the characters. And then ultimately it ends with you picking a fight between, either the ghost or the chieftain, or maybe trying to like talk to them and resolve their differences. Like stuff like that doesn't exist in most games today. Most AAA titles doesn't simply exist because it's like, well, we don't have the time. But there are some people and some games that try to do stuff like that, but it just kind of all falls through in the end. But one of the things I really enjoyed about I play Galactic Empires number 3, I think it is. Yeah, number 3. You can accidentally wake up like a horde of advanced space faring warlike creatures. I've had that happen a few times. I think that would be awesome for a game like this. I hope they add that in the future where like, oh, hey, cool, I found a mega ship. Oh, and I just unleashed this crazy enemy onto the galaxy and we now have to like team up and defeat them. Like stuff like that. Epic. Epic.
You know what they should do away with? Fetch quests.
Yeah. Fetch quests can go kiss my...
I love Breath of the Wild, but man, those random fetch quests that just feels like they're just there to pad the game time. It's like, why?
I've got one better for you. I got one better for you. Please, a settlement needs your help. A settlement needs your help.
Shut up, Preston.
It's like, Preston, go, leave me alone.
Let these people do something for themselves. Frack, why do I have to go and defend everybody's ass? I can't fight every mutant in the wasteland. That's one mechanic that was really missing in Fallout 4 that I really wished they would have fixed in a DLC. Is like, you set up these settlements, but they're completely inept to do anything on their own. They need you to be their supreme dictator, and you do all the building and set up all of the security. I would love to go back. I avoided my settlements like the plague because I hated it. I was just like, I'll just go there, and it'll be like 3 people sitting around a campfire doing nothing, complaining about how they're in the wasteland and life sucks. I would have loved to go back to my old settlements and see them develop, see them like having built something out of it.
One quick note about that, referring back to our episode last week, this is the technology that I'm talking about when it comes to open world games. This kind of an AI problem has always been around, like this stupid fetch quests or things don't really feel, sometimes you really don't feel like you're in a living world. Skyrim was great. Got in there, was like, oh my goodness, people walking around doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And like, this is amazing. And then you realized that's what they do every day. But that is what, humans do.
They do
on a day-to-day basis. So, I mean, I guess...
Yeah, they have a routine. They have a schedule.
Yeah.
And that works. I mean, it's nice to have some variety, but...
Yeah, but the change that we're talking about, to see, like, the AI, work things out and kind of create stuff and stuff like that, that is, I honestly think, is coming. And when we do see it, and when it works really, really well, if it comes out in a game and it works really, really well, that game will be probably a staple for decades to come, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, the technology does need some improvement.
Yeah.
I know, even going back a little ways to Oblivion, they originally designed a far more robust AI system for the NPCs than what was in the final version of the game. But it was too robust because, I mean, you could have people from different factions picking fights with each other, and then suddenly, things would go downhill to the point where, suddenly these factions are at war, and so people are just fighting randomly in the streets in the town you're in. And it's like, well, this doesn't make for a very immersive game experience, for it to be that unpredictable. So they actually scaled back the AI for that game, and so they made it a much more immersive world where a courier will walk through a massive battlefield with everybody hacking and slashing at each other to give you a message. And it's like, this is kind of a bad time. That happened.
I hate quest interrupts like that. Like, it's just, it's so frustrating. Sometimes it's like, okay, this just happened. And actually that happened when, that happened in Mass Effect. Once you got onto the planet, the first major dialogue that I had, the camera angle got stuck under a body of one of the things that I killed. Huh. And I thought I was really kind of annoyed because it was like, well, now I've got to stare at this, this body while these two people are talking and I don't see what's going on. It was really kind of weird. So I immediately committed suicide, reloaded back before I had the conversation, made sure that I positioned the enemy away from where I knew the camera angle was, killed him over there so that I could watch the cutscene again, this time, properly.
I had a situation where I went in, we were fighting some Ket, actually it might have been, I think it was some Krogan actually, outside of some building, and I had to go into the building and listen to this audio log or something, and the fight's not over. But I go in and I'm listening to this thing. This cutscene starts to play, and some Krogan walks in the building behind me and starts wailing on my character while I'm in the middle of this dialogue cutscene, and I'm just sitting there nail biting, watching my health go down and down. I'm like, okay, get to the end of this cutscene so I can fight this guy. So cutscene ends, bleh, dead immediately. It was rather annoying. One of those things that more, a few months of play testing
I've had that
would have fixed. But I did finally got to the end of the main quest in Andromeda, and I quite enjoyed it. I liked how the story ended, and I liked how you could play on after the fact, and they have this whole epilogue where you can talk to people, and they also dropped a lot of hints as to where the story might go in the future. And so I'm actually really looking forward to the DLC now.
I am too. I really hope they smash it out of the park because it's been fairly disappointing up till now. But let's hope the DLC is just amazing, and then we can all move on, which would be great. Did you hear about this pro player Desalvo? Plays for the Immortals team for Overwatch, and he had this interview recently where he was like telling his parents that he was gonna, he wanted to become a pro gamer, and they were like, that's a no-win situation. So they took his internet away from him. They took the bloody internet away, like disconnected him from the ability to get online, and so he'd have to like go to like McDonald's and get onto free Wi-Fi to just like look at screenshots of the maps and stuff like this and study it. Really interesting article. Really interesting article. Look him up. He's Stefano Desalvo, and he plays for the Immortals pro team. Really cool story. Definitely shows how adversity can help you really motivate yourself and grow stronger, which is really cool. But yeah, definitely give that a read. And parents, never assume your children are, just stupid.
Well, is this like I'm going to drop out of school and become a pro player, or is it just like I want to pursue being a...
He wanted to become a pro player after he finished his high school, and he had the skills for it too, but he just just didn't have the support of the parents at all.
See, as a parent, I would be nervous about that too, but it's the same thing as wanting to be a pro sports star. A lot of young people want to be pro sports stars. Not all of them are going to make it. So you don't want to put all your eggs in that basket.
True.
Same thing with, anything like being a YouTuber or, being a streamer. You know what? If you want to try it, you want to do it, you want to, you have a passion for it, go for it.
Did I ever tell you the story where me and another guy, we were huge into gaming. We were huge into like map editors and stuff like that. And we were doing stuff, and we were working really, really hard. And we got to a point where we put together a demo, and we had sent it off to this tiny little company. And they said, "Hey, what you did was good. We'd be interested in hiring you." And both of us went to our parents and were like, "Hey, we want to do this. We want to go for it." And they're like, "Video games, that's a nowhere go. That's terrible. That's absolutely like what a waste of time and energy." Well, that little company made this little known thing called Unreal. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Yeah, and then they made these engines called the Unreal engines. Yeah, that was a great opportunity. Now he works in what is it? He works in the gas industry now.
Huh. Yeah. And it reminds me of all of the times when, I spent hours with computers as a kid, learning everything I could about them, learning how to program. I would program games in BASIC and, learning how networks worked and learning everything I could. I'd get books from the library, learn how computers worked on the inside. I mean, my mom was very skeptical about it. She was the kind of person that's like, you can't rely on them because what if there's a global power outage? And she was very skeptical that this was a good use of my time. And so there were restrictions put on that time. And now I have saved her bacon so many times by fixing her work computer for her. And she's like, "I am so glad that you did all that stuff." She's like, I was so skeptical of it, but I'm so glad now that, because now she doesn't have to pay hundreds of dollars to some professional to fix her computer.
I get asked every once in a while if I'm a computer guy. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, "So I got this email from this person saying that my information has been compromised from Microsoft, and I need to download this thing and pay me this credit card." And I'm like, no.
They should teach a basic class on avoiding spam and avoiding scams on the internet. That should just be like in grade 6 or something. They should teach that stuff, because there's just guys like you and me, we just kind of take it for granted. Like, no, you don't ever download anything that someone sends you in an email. But not everybody's as computer savvy, and they don't know, and they see something like that, they're worried that their computer's legit broken, and so there should be classes and stuff for that for kids and whatnot. But anyway, back to this parenting thing. I see why the parents are concerned about that, and I don't want to be like, "Oh, parents are stupid," because I am one. But I think it is important to support your kids in their passions, even if those passions and those talents are in things that aren't traditional or aren't they're weird. Like, video games didn't exist when our parents were kids. Video games, they just didn't exist.
Actually, my dad was into the early video games.
Okay, but they weren't mainstream.
We're talking Commodore level stuff. He was really into that.
Oh, and there was stuff there were video games in the 70s. I mean, there were few and far between and incredibly, incredibly primitive, but I'm just talking
my dad's first computer game experience was Pong, the old school Pong. He thought it was really cool, but it was this isn't going to go anywhere.
So Outlast 2 is out, and from everything I'm hearing and seeing, it is one of the most terrifying things that's ever been created. So,
oh, you mean like my sister's squash on Thanksgiving? Right? Yeah, no, I've heard that the latest. I mean, Outlast, the first Outlast was crazy, and did really well with the mechanics and the fear building. And speaking of fear, did you ever play Fear 1 through what was it, 3 or
No,
4?
I didn't, but I remember when it came out, and I remember Rooster Teeth did a miniseries with it, and
It was.
I remember Gus Sorolla doing that ridiculous voice.
It was good for a very, like, the first one I was like, wow, this is really cool that they did the horror, but it was a lot of jump scares. And then it's like, hey, here's a weapon to like kill everything. And I was like, weapon? Oh, you give me weapon. And then I thought back to my old days playing Resident Evil, where you played, it was a special version one where you played as Jill Valentine running away from the, what's his face? Really long time ago. I know I should remember this stuff off by heart, but I remember playing that game and having like heart attacks in it every time he would show up, and every time that, it's like you got 4 bullets left. And this is the thing that Outlast does right. And these other games where you can't fight back, when you're just, or when you have a very limited ability to fight back, and most of the time you got to run, those always make for the best games instilling fear, because it's, you're always on the run, and that's really good. That makes for good horror games. Mm-hmm. But I remember you could play and you could unlock a minigun, and you could also unlock never-ending ammo. And so I unlocked both of those things before I finished the main game, because I kept getting so annoyed at like having to run and be afraid and all this kind of stuff. So I just walked around with a minigun, walked into a room, just lit up the whole room, just kept shooting until everything was either dead or stopped moving. And I'm like, okay, well, now it's time to move on and look around.
That reminds me so much of playing Jedi Knight with cheats. God mode, no gravity, and so you could just fly around with a concussion rifle through all the levels. I think I played through the entire game doing that, and dang. I was like, this is what a Jedi, this was what I would be doing if I was a Jedi. I would teach myself to fly.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense, right? Like, oh, hey, look, you want to fight me? Okay, hang on. Now I'm flying, and here's this thing called a concussion rifle that you can't deflect.
Oh dear! But the flying thing too, like Yoda can lift an X-wing out of his swamp, but
he can't make himself float.
Jedi can't lift themselves off the ground and fly around wherever they need to go.
It would be so cheap and easy, and talk about winning in fights, like, my goodness.
Yeah, but anyway, so Outlast 2, Jamie Catalyst has been playing it. She's actually going to be doing a review video for us on it, but she's saying it's the darkest game that she's ever played.
Oh,
and that she's played a lot of horror games. So she's and she said, yeah, this needs a serious content warning, because there's some disturbing stuff in it, apparently. Haven't played it myself. Not sure that I will. But a few other games I came across yesterday. It's supposed to be coming out this year. Have you heard of this game, Cuphead?
No, I have not heard of that one.
Oh, you got to go look it up. Everybody, go look up this game. Looks amazing. So it is it's like a 2D fighting game with these funny little characters called Cuphead and Mug something or other. It's been it was crowdfunded. It's been in development for quite a while. But it's the artistic style it looks exactly like animated cartoons from the 1930s. Like, you remember the really old style, like Disney and Warner Brothers cartoons, that style of animation, like the Popeye and stuff. So this is the art style of the game. It's like going to be like a boss rush fighting game with some platforming. And I was just watching the trailer for this, and it's like this just looks amazing. I've never seen anything quite like this before, but it's all like hand animated, and they really put the effort in to make it look like cartoons from this era. So looking forward to that one. I emailed them because I want to get my hands on this game early if I can to do a review. A couple other interesting games I came across. There's this game coming out called Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is apparently an open world game set in a very medieval setting, but like a real world medieval setting. So without magic, without dragons, without that fantasy element. So it's an RPG set in like real Earth medieval times. Mm-hmm. So that one looked interesting. I mean, it could go games like that, I mean, it's hard to know how good the story is, how good the gameplay is going to be, stuff like that, but I'm keeping my eye on that one. And then there's a really interesting game that I found called Vampyr. It's a vampire, but it's like vampire, like spelled with a Y, like Buffy, Slayer of the Vampires. A joke from last week that somehow made it into this episode. And it's where your character is actually a vampire. And you're also like a town.
I've never played a game like this before.
Are you being sarcastic?
Extremely sarcastic.
Well, okay, I know there's games where you've been vampires, but you're like a vampire and you're also like the town doctor.
Oh, that's an interesting combination.
And it's like set in sort of a medieval setting again. So I kind of get like a thief sort of Dishonored vibe.
Interesting.
And you have to like choose who you're gonna feed on and whose lives you're gonna save, or I don't know. It just seems like a really interesting premise that I'd never heard of anything quite like that before. But apparently it's gonna.
Wasn't this based on true events? Because the whole barber thing back in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, where they would drain the blood from you because blood was bad, but they would always take the blood with them. I always thought that was quite weird. But anyways, enough about my childhood. Yeah. That's definitely a cool concept. I like that concept. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's all we've got for this week. Thanks so much for listening. This has been Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for lots of great gaming content. On behalf of Cybercidian, my name is Asheninity. We'll talk to you next week. Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us out a ton when you do that. Check out this video. It's one of our favorite things that we've done so far on our channel. And here's some more stuff you might like. See the description below for links to our mods on Nexus Mods.